Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to travel way, way back in time, hundreds of millions of years actually, to meet some true pioneers of the plant world. We're talking about the group that invented one of the most important evolutionary tools in the history of life on land. And it all starts with something you've probably found on a walk in the woods.
Yeah, I'm guessing pretty much all of us have picked one of these up at some point, right? A pine cone. Maybe you were hiking, maybe just strolling through a park. It feels so familiar, just a normal piece of nature. But trust me, it is so much more than that.
That's not an exaggeration. The plant that made this very cone comes from an ancient family that literally dominated the entire planet back when dinosaurs were roaming around. So you're not just holding a piece of a tree, you're holding a time capsule from a world we can barely even imagine. So what is the story behind these incredible plants? How did they get to be so successful, and what exactly makes them so special? Let's dig in and unravel that mystery.
So, these plants are called gymnosperms. And get this, they used to be everywhere. They completely dominated the landscape. But over millions of years, things changed. Their kingdom kind of shrank. Now you find them in more specific places, and there are way fewer species left. You know them as those super tough pine trees you see on cold mountains. Or maybe as those fancy, palm-looking cycads some people have in their gardens. A lot of times without even knowing they've planted a literal living fossil.
So what was their secret weapon? What was this huge evolutionary leap that let them basically take over all the land? Well, it all comes down to one absolutely brilliant innovation.
To really get how big of a deal this was, you have to look at how plants evolved. Life started with super simple algae in the water. Then on land, we got bryophytes, things like mosses, which started to have basic stems. After that came pteridophytes, like ferns, which developed a vascular system, like plumbing, to move water around. But the real game changer? That came with the gymnosperms. They were the very first plants on this planet to figure out how to make a seed.
And calling it revolutionary is not overstating it. Before the seed, plants were basically chained to wet, marshy places to reproduce. The seed changed everything. Think of it like a tiny, self-contained survival pod, a protected little embryo with its own packed lunch, all ready to just wait until the conditions were perfect to start growing. This one invention let plants finally cut the cord from the water's edge and spread out across the entire planet. The seed was their superpower for sure. But their name, Gymnosperm, actually tells us something really specific about the kind of seed they have. So let's break down exactly what that name means.
The name literally tells you the whole story. It's from the Greek words gymnos, which means naked, and sperma, which means seed. So a gymnosperm is a naked seed plant. Unlike the plants we're probably more used to, their seeds aren't all tucked away inside a nice protective fruit. Nope, they're just out there in the open.
Okay, this is the perfect way to see the difference. Think about an apple. That's what we call an angiosperm, a flowering plant. Its seeds are all tucked away, nice and safe, inside that fleshy fruit. Now, look at a pine cone. See? No flower, no fruit, nothing. The seeds are just sitting right there, out in the open, on the surface of those little woody scales. Totally exposed, naked. It's the original no-frills version of a seed.
But not all gymnosperms look like pine trees. The group is actually pretty diverse. So let's check out the two major groups that are still around today, the cycads and the conifers.
First up, we've got the cycads. Now, these are the real holdouts from the age of dinosaurs. People often mistake them for palm trees because they've got these thick, stubby trunks that don't branch out and a big crown of leaves. They grow incredibly slow and can live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And then you've got the group we're all a bit more familiar with, the conifers. This is your pines, your firs, your redwoods. And as the name kind of suggests, these are the plants that are famous for making those classic woody cones.
When you compare them, you can see two totally different game plans for survival. On one side, you have the cycads, and they play the long game. They're unbranched, they grow at a snail's pace, and have these shallow root systems. They're like the ancient tortoises of the plant world. But then you have the conifers, and they're all about growing big and growing fast. They branch out like crazy, shoot up quickly, and drill these deep taproots down to support their massive size.
So while they might not be the top dogs in the plant world anymore, these living fossils have left a truly incredible and lasting mark on our planet.
So why do they still matter so much? Well, for starters, they're a direct link, a window into Earth's deep past. They're also vital to our ecosystems, especially in really cold or dry places where other plants just can't make it. Plus, they have huge economic value. We get lumber, paper, even things like turpentine from them. And of course, their amazing internal plumbing lets them grow to just breathtaking sizes.
And speaking of heights, you won't believe this. That super efficient vascular system lets some conifers, like the massive redwood trees, grow to be over 300 feet tall. Let that sink in. That is as tall as a 30-story skyscraper. We're talking about some of the biggest and oldest living things on the entire planet, all thanks to a design that's hundreds of millions of years old. It's just mind-blowing.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The next time you see a pine tree or you pick up one of its cones, I really hope you see it in a new light. Are you going to see just a plant? Or are you going to see a survivor, an innovator, a living fossil that's holding the secrets of an ancient world right there in its scales? Thanks for tuning in.